Hi everyone, welcome to Yoga with Heini. I'm Heini, and this week I want to talk about a few misconceptions about the pigeon pose that often make people feel that they can't do the pose. Let's get started. These three misconceptions are actually related to the cues that teachers give in classes, and these cues have been created over years. I'm not sure where do they originate in, but they have kind of stayed on, and I quite often get a bit confused, students asking me, why can't I do this pose, or telling me that they can't do this pose because they've been told to do pigeon pose with this exact leg angle and the pose should look exactly like this. Let's talk about these few misconceptions and why cueing the pose like this doesn't work for everybody, and why we need to look at the individual's anatomy when we build the pose. And number one is that we should align our front leg shin in a parallel line with the top of the mat. And this kind of alignment cue asks a lot of mobility from the hips and also from the knees. It really does not work for everybody. And if we don't have a lot of mobility in the hip, we might end up putting too much pressure, for example, in the knee, and we might even cause some damage in the knee. So there's no kind of right way of doing pigeon like this, and the angle in your front leg knee could be anything. For some people, it works to bring the shin to a parallel line with the front of the mat. But for many people, this doesn't work. So you're very welcome to bring that front leg foot closer to the pelvis. One of my teachers actually teaches pigeon pose so that you have that front foot very close to your back leg hip. So there's a lot of variability where that front leg shin is. So really let yourself play with your hips, making sure there's no pain in the knee, there's no pain in the hips, and you feel that you're not causing any pains and aches in the body by doing the pose. So really let yourself adjust that angle in the front leg knee to suit your body. There is no right or wrong alignment. The second cue that you sometimes hear is related to the hip angle, again in the front leg. And that cue is that you should align your front leg thigh with the long side of the mat, that they should be in a parallel line. And this works for some people, again, but not for everybody. So again, we might start to cause pinching, too much pressure in the front leg hip, possibly in the knee, if we try to kind of aesthetically align that front leg thigh with a parallel with the long side of the mat. For some people, the thigh needs to move more out to the side. Some people need to bring that thigh more in, and then there's no parallel line with the long side of the mat. Again, there is no right or wrong. Let yourself play with bringing that thigh a bit more out to the side, maybe in the center, maybe more in, finding a place, again, where you feel your hips, your knees are safe. There is no right or wrong angle for your front leg hip either. And the third cue that you sometimes or quite often might hear is that we should square our hips towards the front of the mat in a pigeon. And now if we think about the pose, it's a very asymmetrical pose. The back leg is kind of pointed towards the back of the mat, so the back leg hip and that side of the pelvis is kind of rotating a bit more out to the long side of the mat, whereas the front leg is driving the pelvis and the movement a bit more to the front. But it's not a symmetrical pose. It's not like a standing Tadasana pose where the pelvis can be squared to one side of the mat. So therefore, if we try to square the hips or level the hips we might again start to cause too much pressure, too much rotation in hips, knees. The nature of the pose is very asymmetrical, so I highly encourage you to allow your pelvis to turn a bit out to the side. Some people say kind of towards the diagonal front corner of the mat, or it could be even more open to the side. So if there's something to square or rotate to the top of the mat, I suggest it's the chest. So we could rotate the chest towards the top of the mat, but let your pelvis be in this more open pose. Don't feel that you have to square the pelvis. Again, we don't want to cause any damage by aesthetically placing our body in a certain shape. We need to more listen to the natural shape of our body and not rely on the aesthetics, not trying to fix our body into a certain shape. And definitely your body doesn't need to look a certain way in the pose. The pose is more about the function of the movement and where we feel it, rather than looking a certain way in the pose. I hope these 3 points help you find a more functional pigeon pose for your body. There's always room to adjust and move about so that you find a shape that works for your body. And as always, I'm really happy to continue conversations, so leave comments below if you have more questions. I'll do a more detailed pigeon video a bit later on. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you know someone who might benefit from this or who you think might like the video, I would really appreciate if you would share this with them. It really helps these videos and helps the channel. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye!